The Spanish came to Ecuador for gold. In the heat and tropical decay of the coastal city of Guayaquil, I'm about to follow in the footsteps not only of the conquistadors, but also of Kid Dalton, Cat Jameson, Roaring Dick, and Hurricane Harry. Amazing engine drivers and daredevil brakemen, Americans like me, who first ran this railway from Guayaquil to the capital city of Quito on the line they called the Good and Quick. Quite early in the morning, before even the sun has got out of bed, on a Graham-greenish sort of a morning, full of subtle Latin menace, there is a river to cross before we get to the train. Spaniards sailed up here, hunting for Inca treasure. Ghostly figures, a river of ancient miseries, pilgrims maybe. This is a Catholic country, and I am a Catholic too, off on a pilgrimage of sorts to Quito, a holy city with 86 churches. An early morning thought.
Póngame el número, pues.
Es que no hay número, todo está cupo lleno.
¿Cuál es el que está vacío?
The Good and the Quick is neither good nor quick. It'll take me 2 days to cover just 280 miles on its 42-inch narrow-gauge track. Price of the ticket, just over £1. Yet it's all very ordinary. Just like home in New England. Just like home in England.
¿Para dónde?
Half light and half asleep. Nothing very exotic. Cups of coffee and that early morning feeling, just like shoving your way down the Holborn Underground or catching the 8:20 something to somewhere. Or is it? A face older than Ecuador. Commuters waking up to face the day's news. This is that South American rarity, a democracy with a free press. But it's not quite inner city, first class, Ecuadorian style. And this is third class. That's but a boxcar with benches. Ecuador is a poor country. Catholic or not, I am the foreigner here. And they have a certain way of looking at a gringo. This little oil-fired mogul, 260, wobbling through the flatland in a mad Ecuadorian rumba, is another gringo. All the way from Philadelphia. It's an exotic place to end up when you're from Philadelphia. Down on the plantations, the air is all full of flower smell. Belladonna, sleepy as its name, the scent of wild ginger, and gardenia, just like the corner florists in Bloomsbury, as if the train were plowing through a flower shop. Up the track, in this run-down railway boom town called Bucay, they cannibalize old engines to keep the steam trains running. Someday, there will be none left to cannibalize. Then, no more steam. This is a train for the people. The rich drive motor cars, take the airplane, but the people ride the train. And it's a moving market. The old Spaniards came and made them docile Christians. The Americans came and made them docile suppliers and consumers. But this old train, a marvel of 19th century ironmongery, brings fish from the sea, fruit from the jungle, newspapers from the big city, and strangers like me from so far, far away, they wouldn't believe it.
Aquí es 30 minutos. Ya mismo tenemos que comer más caro, está caro, manito.
cheery little red engine isn't strong enough to get us into the mountains. The big black Baldwin Consolidation 280 is what you need for the high Andes. It's this which we hope will get us up over the mountain they call the Devil's Nose. Getting pretty crowded for a gringo in here, with money coming out, along with other things. Ladies making withdrawals from the family bank. And lunch coming out. All that meat and no potatoes. The reason it's crowded is that we're on the way up. We're all squeezing into 3 coaches, all 3 classes together, cheek by jowl, with the 8 driving wheels of the Consolidation, climbing, always climbing now. Up the line at the Rio Bamba headquarters, they are trying to run the railway with the original equipment.
Aló. Buenas tardes. ¿Quién nomás usted?
They've had the gear since the line opened in 1908. All this technology, and yet the train is late. The train is always late, but the boss has to pretend it comes as a surprise.
¡Aló, aló! ¡Hola! ¡Aló, Bucay! Porque de Durán me están exigiendo de que todos los vacíos mande enseguida. Tenga la bondad de estarme viendo cuántos han ido.
Meanwhile, back down the line, they are feeding the 5,000. Overlooking it all, El Presidente, General Alfaro, the man who gave them the railway. The people did not love him for it. One day, they hitched him up to 2 wild horses and pulled him apart. And still the train doesn't run on time. Coming out of the jungle, the American engineers and laborers breathed easy in this clear air. They had died of snake bite and malaria, but only now did they face their foremost obstacle, the Devil's Nose, a giant, bald granite mountain blocking their way. That's where we're heading now. On the map, Ecuador seems like a tiny toehold on the Pacific coast of a sprawling continent. But here, how vast it seems, lost and far away. Burrowing our way to the Devil's Nose. We are high, and the air is thin, distorting reality, giving an edge to my worst fears, like the fear of falling. This is a hard country with hard men. They don't actually kill the bulls here. Bulls are too damned expensive, Jack. You don't go around killing bulls. If anyone's going to get killed, Jack, it's going to be you. Here they just sort of take the mickey out of him. Finally, the bull gets bored and strolls on home. Very sophisticated fun, and all set to the craziest sort of drunken music you ever heard. The Rio Bamba City Slickers. 7 days they've been at it. They'll be at it 7 days more. This is the fiesta. They've always been like this, even before the Spaniards. Work hard, play hard, and become old. So very old before your time. That is the fate of the Indian, and it has never changed. A jug of mountain juice and mucho, macho, agro. And this is the nightmare come true. This is the devil's nose for real. It took 37 years to build the railway. The devil's nose took 2 years alone. They couldn't get Americans to work here. They had to bring in convicts from Jamaica. They died in dynamite explosions and landslides, but finally they cracked it. They cut a zigzag, a giant Z, an inspired series of switchbacks. Lateral thinking. If you can't go forward, go backwards. "1,000 feet up, and no nightmare. More like a dream of flying. A heavenly chug over the roof of the world." But the Spaniards came the hard way, hacking their way through the jungle, clawing their way up the mountains. Their armor rusted, their horses dead. What did they find? A wilderness, a desert. 86 died, but more of them came. There was no stopping the Spanish march on Quito. The Spaniards would come, the railway would come. The Spaniards wanted gold. They brought death and civilization. But sometimes you get the idea that nobody really takes much notice of it all. Let the Spaniards come. Let the foreigners and the railway and all the modern world come. We'll pretend not to see them. After all, we are the Indians. We count in eons of time, millions of years. What are half a dozen mere centuries to us? Nobody ever came to Latin America to be on time. Our train and the modern world are late. 7 hours and several centuries. And into the night we go. Into the desert night, following the hoof prints of the 200 Spaniards, who had nothing between them and Quito but 15,000 Indians, the entire Inca army. The Incas were slaughtered. The Spaniards won a famous victory, built a church, and pressed on for gold. They had brought death and a new religion, which was itself half in love with death. Conquering Christians gave the Indians a line into Western European culture. A people who had worshipped the sun now only had candles to light. I am going to the high mountains, says an Indian lament. Perhaps there I shall be rid of my sorrow. I climb, I climb. The clouds are very close now. The landscape as old as the world. Cotopaxi, Cayambe, Sangay, Antisana, Ilaniza, a litany of volcanoes, Corazon, and the venerable Chimborazo. "16,000 feet up on the snow line of Chimborazo, high in the thin air of the Andes, a testament to the country's history, a permanent seam of gray ice, centuries thick. Senor Baltazar Urcar, 40 years old, father of 3, is engaged in the family business. 3 times a week, he climbs the volcano to bring ice down for the big city. What a job it is just to breathe at this altitude. What were the Spaniards going to give to Senor Urcar, or the Americans bring to him on their railway? His way of life goes back 1,000 years. His country is the high Andes, as untouchable and enduring as its people. Riobamba and civilization. Reeling into the 20th century, hunchbacked like Quasimodo, he sweats and staggers like Christ on the Via della Rosa. Senor Urcar, the Iceman of the Equator. Spaniards under Don Sebastian de Benalcazar brought the blessings of the Holy Roman Catholic Church, where water was turned into wine, and wine was turned into blood. And with that, these old Spaniards also opened the way for all the mixed blessings of the Western world. Fizzy drinks, Pepsi, Coke, Fanta. That was what Senor Urcar's labors on the mountain were for. He thirsted, and they gave him Fanta. Do you have a burden? Do you have a heavy bundle? Put it on the back of some Indian. And the Indian lays his burden on us. Guilt. Riobamba and civilization. And the man who brought it, Benalcazar. He had only one way to go. Una via. On to Quito, city of gold. Onward to the 20th century.
Love of my life, I will never leave you. You on my mind, wherever you are. Maria, mi amor.
The autoferro. This is what we've replaced steam with. No romance, just whorehouse music and efficiency. A vulgar intrusion of the 20th century. A bus body welded onto a diesel.
All I can do is dreaming of you. Maria, mi amor.
After the amazing weird desert, we have the gentle alpine scenery of a sort of Latin Switzerland. And bullying its way through all this, just as if it had a perfect right to be there, is the bumptious, busy little engine, the autoferro, a go-getter, climbing all the time. High and lonesome Urbina, nearly 12,000 feet up in the Andes, the highest point on the line, and lonely as a hotel room. It sits on the site of the old royal road of the Incas. Messengers of the King Emperor ran barefoot, carrying royal decrees to Quito, from the southern tip of the empire, 1,000 miles away, running in relays, messages by foot and mouth. Send 3 and 4pence, we're going to a dance. Senor Manuel Bastida, 32, father of 2, has been here 10 years, serving his master, the railway. Each day, 1 train in each direction.
Hola, señor, de nuevo, buenas tardes. ¿No hay novedad? Sin novedad. Muy bien, entonces sigan más adelante. ¿Está bien? ¿No hay novedad? No hay nada. Muy bien, muy bien. Sigan más entonces.
2 trains a day, 2 brief conversations. It's driving Senor Bastida nuts. He wants to go down to the bright lights of Riobamba, drink some Fanta, and poke fun at the bull. The autoferro. Unreal, despite the noise. It seems a lifetime ago. The steam train, the mountains, the Indians. This diesel is the future of the railway. And these prosperous, middle-class children, with their pre-packed, Americanized culture, may be the future of Ecuador and everywhere else. But some still hang on to the old ways. The inheritor of the conquistadors, Don Bolivar Lasso, direct descendant of Benalcazar's right-hand man, and yet not Spaniards, but Ecuadorians on horseback. "500 years ago, they brought Spain with them to the New World and put a wall around it. Today, the railway track runs right across Don Bolivar's estate. Not that you'd ever notice. In Ecuador, rich and poor, jungle and mountain, wild, drunken times and saintly patience sit side by side. And the old Spaniards knew these conflicts too. Greedy for riches, pious for their religion, they rode out one fine morning within sight of Quito. Did those Spaniards have a conscience? Did the crass, hard-eyed 19th century Americans who built the railway to rob the country ever have a doubt? Or is it only us, pathetic modern people, who feel guilt? We travel 6,000 miles, make a 2-day pilgrimage on a train, and go away leaving nothing. The Spanish made the same journey. When they got to Quito, they found no treasure. Only ruins, but their base instincts were transformed. Finding no city of gold, they built one.
This concludes Great Little Railways on Channel 54. Join us nightly in this time period for Six Gun Heroes.